Finally, lesson 3 on the appeals process for courts. Most cases are never appealed, but if they are going through the appeals process, there are certain causes that could get it appealed. One would be an error of law. That means the judge made some sort of mistake in the process of applying the law and interpreting the law. There's also procedural due process problems. Maybe the prosecutor withheld some evidence, which they're not allowed to do. Okay, maybe the jury was improperly selected. There have been cases where sometimes, like after a person is convicted, somebody will tell a friend or the media or something who was on the jury, they'll say like, oh, I knew from the very beginning that he was guilty and I was hoping to get on that jury because he needed to go to prison. Well, that person is saying that they were biased and therefore they shouldn't have been on the jury. So these are grounds for appeals. When you go to an appeal, there is no jury, there are no witnesses, only the lawyers go and speak, and they speak to a panel of judges, usually 3 or more judges. And they make the case of why there should be some change in the decision. When that panel of judges decides the appeal, they usually will issue a written decision. Not always, but usually a written decision. The first written decision will be called the majority opinion. That is what they decided. They decided yes or no or whatever they decided. It's the majority opinion. It is voted on by the panel of judges, so it could be 2 to 1. In, say, the Supreme Court, there's 9 justices on the Supreme Court. It could be 5 to 4 or 7 to 2 or something like that. Whichever side is the majority, they're going to write their decision, and that's the majority opinion. Sometimes there can be what's called a dissenting opinion. That would be if any of the judges disagreed, they have the option to write their opinion and explain why they disagreed. So in the majority opinion, they'll not just say what they decided, but they'll explain why they decided it. The dissenting opinion, they will argue, we think the majority is wrong and here's why. So they'll explain that as well. Most Supreme Court cases are actually unanimous, so we don't even have those, but sometimes we do. And then even more rare than that is what's called a concurring opinion. Concurring would be when one of the judges agrees with the majority's decision, but disagrees with the reasons. So remember, the majority opinion says what they decided and why. A concurring opinion would be, well, they decided correctly, but their reasons for that decision were wrong, and here's what they should have used as their reasons. So that would be a concurring opinion. Finally, last part, precedent and stare decisis. Precedent is when one court decision is used as a basis for future court decisions. We want the legal system to be predictable, we want it to be consistent, we want it to be fair, so we need to know what to expect. So if courts are constantly making different types of decisions on similar issues, then how do we know what to predict or what to expect? So we want courts to basically be using the same sort of standards over and over. So precedent could be things like Wainwright v. Gideon v. Wainwright, actually. We want that decision that you have the right to an attorney to be upheld in future decisions. We want the Miranda decision to be upheld in future decisions. Sometimes they do get overturned though. So for example, the Dred Scott decision that you'll learn about said that blacks were not citizens. That got overturned by the Reconstruction Amendments, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments. Then there was the Plessy decision, which approved of separation or segregation, separate but equal. But then that was overturned by Brown. So there are times when we actually do want to go against precedent. We want to say, the court made this decision in the past, but they were wrong. So that would be an example when Plessy was overturned by Brown v. Board of Education, which ruled that segregation was unconstitutional. Another important case that happened just recently, you might have heard about, Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Dobbs decision. So stare decisis is just a Latin term that means let the decision stand. That's precedent. It's a legal term that means whatever we decided in the past, we're going to keep deciding accordingly with that. And again, that leads to predictability, consistency, fairness in our legal system, which is what we want.